Hello, beautiful people. My name is Kira, aka Words by Kira, and in this video, I have my really close friend Will King on with me, and we're going to be discussing entertainment. Will has a wealth of knowledge on the subject when it comes to pop culture, box office dates, actors and actresses, and a lot more. So if you want to hear more about the entertainment industry through his eyes and mine, then keep on watching. Well, I am so glad that you're doing this episode with me. I'm really happy you're on the channel. And I just want, for people who don't know you, you to just tell a little bit about yourself and kind of explain what made you gravitate to the entertainment industry.
So first of all, Kira, thank you so much for allowing me to be on your YouTube channel. I've been watching it since day one, and I'm just so proud of you. I just, all your topics, I'm just so much of a fan of you. And then just being friends with you for almost 7 years now.
Yes.
It's been great. So basically, I'm Will. Hey, everybody. What got me basically into the entertainment industry is I've always been surrounded by the arts, going from either television, film, and theater, of growing up with my mother in Paterson, New Jersey, and basically through in the time that I grew up, which was in the late 80s into the 90s, when we were at home, all we would do was watch television. And it was just one of those things where my mother and I connected with through watching television shows on NBC, especially on Thursday nights. And then also for me on Saturday mornings, through remembering as a little kid, because I was in preschool, when Saved by the Bell came on with all the cartoon shows, when Alf was animated, even though he was a primetime show back on NBC, and also watching for the people in the area where we live at in northern New Jersey. I call it the tri-state area as well. I usually will say things like Channel 2, 4, 5, and 7 is basically the CBS Fox station. Channel 4 is the NBC station, and Channel 7 is the ABC station, because those are the main networks that I watched growing up as a kid. And also, growing up, I was also in dance school and also in acting as well, because I was just so mesmerized by seeing a lot of younger people on television, because at the time, you had the Cosby Show, A Different World, Family Matters. It was a lot of Black television, I should say, on TV when I was born. So it was very interesting of just seeing younger kids that look like me on TV and just seeing them act and perform. And it was just something that I was just like, wow, I really want to be a part of this. Originally, I wanted to be an actor. So that's where everything kind of lined up at.
I love that, Will. And for people that don't know, Will and we work for a network television channel. And so Will really knows a lot from his own personal interest in the industry and also working in the field as well. And I know that television and programming is really important to you, Will. So I wanted to ask you, if you could choose a favorite decade of television, what would you say is yours?
Mine is basically the 1990s.
Yeah.
I grew up with Nickelodeon, so I had Clarissa Explains It All, My Brother and Me, Saturday Night Nickelodeon, aka Snick, which was, I can tell you the original lineup. It was Clarissa Explains It All at 8, then at 8:30 was Roundhouse, I believe, and then 9 o'clock was Ren and Stimpy, and then 9:30 was Are You Afraid of the Dark? And at the time, we only had one television in the living room. So I used to have to beg with my mom to watch my shows, Snick, because of the famous orange couch. And at the same time, it was 1992 when Snick premiered, and A Different World was moved to Saturday nights for their 6th season on NBC. So my mother would try to say, I'm watching A Different World, even though I loved that show as well. And also Patti LaBelle had a show called Out All Night, which was set in the same universe as The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. So that used to come on, and also Malcolm Jamal Warner show, Theo from The Cosby Show, had a show called Here and Now. And that was also on Saturday nights as well. So I'm asking, can I see Snick? And even though I love these other shows as well, and we didn't have the automated cable box yet, so we had to manually change the network. And it would go from Channel 4, which would be the NBC network, to Channel 37, which was the Nickelodeon network. So it would just be constantly going just down that way. And also TGIF, even though that started in 1989, I believe, and that ran off with Full House used to come on first, and then Family Matters. But then back in the 90s, you had Full House, I believe, moved to the week. So I believe they were on like Tuesday or Wednesday. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it went to the week instead of on Friday. And then Family Matters led off. Then it was Step by Step, and then there was another show called Getting By, Baby Talk. That was like spun off of Look Who's Talking. That was interesting. It was just a lot there. And then you, of course, had Saved by the Bell. And then when they moved into their final season in 1992, then it was called TNBC, like Teen NBC, because they started building a live action teen oriented television programming on Saturday mornings. Because
I didn't know about that. What year was that, Will?
That was 1992. They started that. Because Saved by the Bell was at one point one of the only live action shows on Saturday mornings, because they were competing with Bugs Bunny. So it was just all of that. It was a lot of like late 80s, early 1990s programming between Snick, TGIF. Just like I remember talking with you about how when you were growing up, like the Disney Channel was like mainstay for you. And for me, Nickelodeon was like the main network outside of network television.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I was definitely a Nickelodeon fan too, heavy with my Rugrats and Harriet the Spy. I can remember watching, like, getting the videos, and they were all orange, and I thought that was so cool. Remember that?
Yeah, it was a lot of good television back in the 1990s, and then also Thursday nights was very popular in our house. Between coming off of watching, and I was still a little bit young towards the end of the years of A Different World, and also The Cosby Show, and also Cheers was also on. So I can only watch the first hour of it because my bedtime used to be 9 o'clock. So I would just watch both A Different World and Cosby, and then once those shows went off the air, we went to the Fox Television Network, and that's when you had Martin, Living Single, New York Undercover used to come on. And that, while everybody was watching Friends on Thursday nights on NBC, we were watching, Martin would lead off, then it would be Living Single and New York Undercover. And that all was a trickle between, Martin came on in 92, Living Single came on 93 on Sunday nights. And then all of a sudden in 1994, we were like, oh, it was like the best Thursday nights became like Martin, Living Single, and New York Undercover, 1994. It was just everything. And that's when I ended the 4th grade as well. So it was just a lot of good television back then. And then also I would watch the cable networks like MTV and VH1, and then also BET, because they used to have Teen Summit. And then back in the day, before BET was transitioning to now CBS Viacom, there was a lot of good programming in the early days, because we didn't get cable until 1989, when I was about 3.5 going on 4. And back then, there was always a sense from my mother just to know like my own history. And then also they had a lot of good programming on between Our Voices, because BET was originally in, I believe, in Washington, D.C. So they would have talk shows about things that were going on in the Black community with Bev Smith. That was Our Voices. And then also what really made me excited about television back then is they had a show called Screen Scene with Angela Striblin, and one of the co-hosts was Harold McCoo. And it would just tell you all the up and ups of all the African Americans. I always say just Black Americans in television, stage, and film. So that's there where I got to see more things going on, especially with Alfre Woodard, Denzel Washington.
What year did that show come out?
Screen Scene, I believe, I don't know the exact date, but it was I definitely saw it in the early 1990s. Okay. It was on. And it was one of those shows where you would just see what was going on. They were profiling John Singleton at the time because he came out with Boys in the Hood. And he was, I believe, the youngest at the time nominated for Best Director for Boys in the Hood. And it was just profiling all the Hudlin brothers who did Boomerang with Eddie Murphy, which was so good.
I haven't watched Boomerang starring Eddie Murphy, Halle Berry, and Robin Givens, and many more, Martin Lawrence, David Allen Greer, the list goes on. You guys need to check that movie out. It's so amazing.
I did see that in the movie theaters. Mm-hmm. And that was when I was 7. So, yes, there were some things my mother used to just cover my eyes on in there because she didn't like to have a lot of babysitters. So I grew up a lot of going to the movies mostly every Saturday. Like going back to Screen Scene, of just seeing so many up-and-coming Black directors. And then also at the time you had 227. 227 that just went off in 1990. But it was just a whole lot of shows where you would just see them just sitting behind the scenes. You would see the sets and you would just see the producers. That was another thing that caught me, is that I just saw a lot of producers like Winifred Hervey, who wrote for The Golden Girls. Benny Medina was the idea for The Fresh Prince of Bel-air. Mm-hmm. It was created by Susan and Andy Borowitz. Mm-hmm. Those are the real creators of the show. But it's based on the idea of Benny Medina, who's a well-known music producer, and it was based on his life. And then, of course, Quincy Jones was the producer of the show, and Will Smith was the star of the show. So that was of just seeing just all this talent from music, television, and film, just being on the show and just talking about just the shows. It was amazing.
Yeah, it's definitely. And, I think now, because of all the different streaming services and cable and all the different networks, it feels like, wow, we have such an abundance, and we absolutely do. But even back then and before, there were a lot of options for everyone to watch. And I love the fact that they were really talking about behind the scenes as well and giving people that bird's eye view into what goes on to create a show, because I think that kind of opens the door for people to start thinking about their career. So I'm happy that you brought up that show, Behind the Scene. It's called Behind the Scenes?
Screen Scene.
Oh, Screen Scene. I'm really happy that you brought up Screen Scene because I think it's really important for people to get that perspective. So my next question for you is, who do you think are some leaders in the television industry that you really think have made a really positive impact?
That was another load. I was just like, wow, there was just so many. And then also, I could say Oprah Winfrey, Debbie Allen. Debbie Allen is one of my favorite people that I really look up to because she's a Broadway actress. She's also the sister of Felicia Rashad as well. And just that whole those sisters are just amazing, how they just conquered television, stage, and film. And with Debbie, she's just someone that's just highly influential because she just has so much energy. And also of just knowing her story of coming from Houston, Texas, and then just seeing all the different barriers that she had to endure, especially with dance, and then also of just growing up in the South while trying to be an artist and being blocked because of her skin color, her body, because she wasn't considered having the dancer's body. in there, and it's just like, this is ridiculous. But it's just of just seeing her talent of just going from a Broadway actress, a film actress, to actually starting to direct on television. I remember watching a rerun of Family Ties one late at night, and then I saw her in the credits as a director, and I was like, whoa. And I was like, she was director for Family Ties. And then, as me and because we love A Different World,
Yes.
and she took over for season 2, which, sorry, no shade, I call that the real season 1 of A Different World. So even though, and they just had a birthday recently, September 24th, 1987. They came on, but that was season 1. Loved Lisa Bonet.
Yes.
But to me, Different World started in 1988 in October, season 2. And just seeing her just taking over, because she went to his HBCU, historically black college, your alma mater, Howard, and just to see how of her being asked to take over the show, and just seeing her producing and directing, and then also all the issues that were going on between, date rape, and then also apartheid was, that was big back in the 80s as well, of just infusing social issues, and then also of them just living in this world in college. And they went to fictional college in Virginia, which at one point I said I wanted to go to Hillman, and then finding out Hillman doesn't exist. It's a mix of Morehouse and Spelman and all the other HBCUs like Howard all into one. But it was just at the point, basically with that show, tripling the enrollment for young black people to go to college, because you saw a show like that never was on television back then, of just showing young black people getting an education that much. And that was in the 80s, late 80s. And then before that, got to give credit also to Spike Lee with School Days, because that was shot before Different World as well. And of just seeing all of that in there. But with Debbie directing for television, and then also being a choreographer, a dancer, and also, she did one of your favorite TV movies, Polly, as well. And being a choreographer for the Oscars, because that's another thing she is a choreographer, a dancer, singer, actress, producer. And right now, I follow her on Facebook because she's one of the executive producers, and she stars on Grey's Anatomy. So it's just like she's just keep going in all these different areas. And to me, that's been an inspiration. Then, of course, Oprah Winfrey as well.
I absolutely love your picks. I mean, just like you said, there are so many leaders. And for me personally, I definitely went through a phase where I really wanted to be a director. Who knows what's coming in the future? I'm definitely not giving up on that aspiration. And Spike Lee definitely was the first director where, when I watched his movies, Crooklyn and Do the Right Thing, I actually really saw myself possibly going in that direction. I was so inspired by his creativity and how he spoke about the Black experience and just his creative freedom, honestly. So I just wanted, I love that you mentioned him, and I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Spike, if you're watching, all these people, if you're watching, we love you and we appreciate your work. So now, Will, wow, you've just given us so much information, and I really love that you are constantly keeping up with all these different things. I kind of want you to explain an experience that you've had working in the industry that you feel was very impactful for you, because you've worked for multiple television shows. So what's one story that you can tell us that you think really made an effect on you as a career in this industry?
Definitely getting my first internship in television back in 2006. And I was doing a lot of summer stock theater at my alma mater, which is Montclair State University. So I had a major in broadcasting and my minor was in theater. And it was coming up to my it was actually my senior year of college. And I had done a couple of summer stock theaters, basically summer theater that I was doing on the summers. Shout out to John Wooten. He gave me a chance back in 2004. So I did that for 2 years, and leading into 2006, because I was like, wait a minute, I'm graduating. So let me take a shot in New York. And I have to say, I was going for different internships. I wanted to see, okay, which one where I would really start to go in, because at one point I wanted to be a television writer. So I said, okay, let me just find different things. And I have to say, it was a little symposium at the Center for Communication in New York. And it had a couple of screenwriters and also soap opera writers, because that was another thing. I used to watch a lot of soaps on my day off when I would spend time with my grandmother as well.
Yes.
So that can be a whole different thing. But basically, I went to this seminar, and there was writers from Guide and Light, and also Richard Wesley, I believe his name is. He wrote Uptown Saturday Night. So it was just like, it was just a meeting of television writers, and also Jeff Marks, who was the writer for Avenue Q on Broadway. It was an interesting evening of just seeing them talking with the moderator. I believe his name was Michael Rydell. He is a columnist, theater. He's a theater critic, and he was just moderating this debate. Well, not really a debate, but it was just what was going on in television and then also in theater. And it was just very interesting of just listening to all of these writers talk about the different genres within the medium. And I was just like, wow, I was so enthused with it. I ended up going, make a long story short, I applied for a couple of internships in the city. One was at All My Children in their writer's office. And I basically went to the interview, and I just told them I went to this event called the Center of Communication that was talking about like television and writing, and then also with theater as well, and also with film. And I said, I really am really into this whole entire world of writing for television. And then I started talking about, I said, well, I didn't watch All My Children. My uncle did, but I know The Young and the Restless and The Bold and the Beautiful and General Hospital, because I could tell you all the many different storylines from there on days off, because those storylines, I know soaps are far-fetched, but I have to say I was on the road with my college roommate at the time to go to Costco, and I got a call to come in for an interview. I went in for the interview for All My Children, and then as soon as I got back to school, I got a call saying that I got the internship for the writer's office. So I was excited about that, because I was nervous, because you had, at the time, NYU was very big with their film and television. They still are, but back then, before the Netflix and all the different streaming sites, everybody, included me, wanted to go to NYU for television, film, and theater. And also you had Columbia as well, Columbia University. So I was just thinking, wow, I got this internship with All My Children in their writer's office, and I kind of beat other kids from NYU. They were there, but it was just like, wow, a person coming from northern New Jersey getting a television internship in New York City on a major soap opera. It was like one of the biggest things I'll never forget. And just going into the ABC building and then going into the writer's office and just actually seeing all the scripts there, and then watching on the monitor of when they were going through the rehearsal. And then also at the time, The View was also taping in the same building. So if you would turn to a specific channel, you would see the feed of The View also, which I got an internship to. This was when Rosie O'Donnell was first on the show. So I caught the last half of her thing. And no, I was not there the day that it happened. I was on a senior trip to Florida and I watched. But as a fun tip on there, I will share this. The dress that Elizabeth Hasselbeck wore the day that her and Rosie got into it, this is real. This is not a lie. All the interns, at one point, we would shadow different departments. And on one particular day before the end of my internship, I had to go with the wardrobe stylist for the show. And she would go to, I believe she went to Bloomingdale's. And they have like a studio services of all of the different it would be all the different clothes that would be pulled for all the different New York talk shows and different shows around there. And I remember I was with her in a section, and one of the, I think it was in the petite section, and she was just picking up clothes, and it was just interesting to see how her just picking up shows for specific hosts. And I remember her walking up to one of these dresses. Her shoulders were out, and it was like a emerald, and then also it had like orange. It was, if people know the video and they probably have seen it up on there. But I remember her taking the dress off of the rack, and she throwing it onto my arm because I was just using my left arm for anything that the stylist was pulling. She would just pull it off the rack and then just throw it on my arm, and I would just continue to keep going. And the funny thing is I was in Florida after my internship had ended, and I looked up at the TV and I said, "Oh my God, the dress that Elizabeth is wearing, it was on my arm." And it was just so funny of just seeing it on TV. And then that's the day when her and Rosie blew up, and that's always in history. But that's a real fact on there. I even like put up like, this is my View badge from ABC. So to really tie off on the Elizabeth Hasselbeck story, that was true, because here it was of just going from All My Children to The View within 1 year. So that's one of the biggest impacts for me, is actually starting to work in TV, and then in an area that I really wanted to be in at the time.
It's really such a blessing to be your friend, and you're able to share these things that you know with me. And I hope everybody watching that you're able to learn more from this conversation as well. I know from our friendship that you've always loved PBS especially. So can you just name some shows that really made an impact on you in terms of PBS and why you loved it so much?
Number one was Sesame Street. I went to Sesame Place 5 times before 1990. I believe the first time we went was in 1988, because my mother has a hot neon shirt that says 88 on there, Sesame Place. We still can't find this shirt to this day, but and that used to be my favorite. 1, 2, 3, and that started my fascination with New York and brownstones, because I love a good brownstone. But Sesame Street was number one. That was always in my house, and of just Big Bird, Grover, and one of my favorite movies when I was a child was Follow That Bird. And I used to ask my mother to rent that every weekend until, shout out to the mom and pop video stores before Blockbuster came. They were always around, and we knew guy, his name was Eric, kind of looked like Jeff Goldblum, but they were always the experience going into that video store and getting Follow That Bird, until one day he called me up to the front, to the counter, and I was still small, and it was so big, the counter, and then he leaned down and handed me the tape of Follow That Bird, because he's like, your son always keeps getting this movie every weekend. So that was another, I just wanted to give a shout out to the mom and pop old video stores back then. But Sesame Street was very big. And then also there was a show that I loved so much, came out in 1992. It was almost in the same weekend as The Mighty Ducks, which is one of my favorite kid movies. It was called Ghost Rider. I have to stress it enough. Ghost Rider. Ghost Rider was one of my favorite shows, because it was teaching children how to read and also to write. And then also it was a detective show. And I just loved the background of it, which I read recently, because there was a mystery. People didn't know who Ghost Rider was, but he was visible to a specific diverse group of kids, which I just love. It was set in Fort Greene, Brooklyn. And it just had so many different people. I ended up learning different cultures on the show. And also Samuel L. Jackson played the father of Jamal, Sheldon Turnipseed, who was like the leader of the group. That was the first person Ghost Rider revealed himself to, after he knocked over a book, getting in the trunk to take his sister to college. And all of a sudden this figure comes out of a book. It was their 25th anniversary a couple of years ago. And the writer Miranda Barry, I believe, that was a writer on the show, talked about the origins of Ghost Rider. And basically, the show was canceled in 1995 after their last episode mystery arc, the attack of the slime monster. And then all of a sudden, I remember watching that Sunday, and then the next following Sunday, it went all the way back to the original. And I was like, what's wrong with that? 8 years later in college, I end up finding out that Ghost Rider was canceled because of lack of funds, because PBS is a public run television station, and their donations, they only get a limited set of a budget, and also they get donations, and Nike was one of their biggest sponsors at the time. And then also it was using computer generated images, CGI, with Ghost Rider, which was groundbreaking back then. Ghost Rider was just, it was an important show for me because I lived in a city as well in New Jersey, and just seeing a community that reflected my neighborhood portrayed on television, and of just seeing so many diverse young people on television, and them just learning how to come together, be in like a melting pot, along with solving the mysteries around their neighborhood, and then just showing the different areas of Brooklyn. It just made me want to go to Fort Greene and being like, wow, I want to go to Zora Neale Hurston Middle School, because that was the middle school that they went to on the show. And it was just so, it just, to me, it was like, wow, that's New York City, and I want to go there. And it was just the importance of reading, critical thinking. That was also another big major component of the show, with them being detectives. So I really loved and appreciated Ghost Rider for the many different things on there. And shout out to the MTV episode where Lenny did her music video. A lot of people probably out there remember that. You Gotta Believe and stuff. It's so many good episodes. And it used to come on at 6 o'clock. And then Carmen Sandiego, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego, used to come on at 5:30 beforehand, until I think it moved to other different days, but it used to be the lead in to Ghost Rider. So that was all about, world geography, along with Carmen Sandiego going around. So that was another good show that I loved on PBS. So they were there with their education. And I just pray that PBS continues to keep getting funded, because it is important. Public television is important. That's how so many people watch, even if they didn't have cable. That was the blessing of growing up in the late 80s and early 90s, even though we were fortunate to have cable, but also I watched a lot of network television, public television, and then also cable. So that all of those different areas shaped the reason why I wanted to get into the entertainment industry.
Yes, thank you for that, Will. Hearing you talk about Ghost Rider specifically, it really makes me think about the different childhood shows that I watched and how it really impacted me. You already know my love for Hey Arnold. Shout out to Hey Arnold fans out there. And
Doug is not trash.
One time, Will and I got into a whole big debate about Doug versus Hey Arnold. In the comments, let me know, what show did you guys prefer, Doug or Hey Arnold? But anyway, like I was saying about Hey Arnold, I just love that show so much because I feel like it showed such a sense of community and people coming together from different backgrounds and people actually caring about others and wanting to help. It was a lot of emphasis on mental health with the kid episode, and then going through Helga's whole history and like seeing the different trauma that she went through with her parents and being neglected, and why she clung to Arnold, and Birdman, how he kind of rejected society and really wanted to just be with the birds and live freely and be protected. Like, I could go on and on. If you have never seen Hey Arnold, do yourself a favor and check it out. If you have, you already know. So from transitioning from all this amazing programming that you know about, Will, from the book that your mom gave you and just growing up in the arts and all of these things, you've noticed, I'm sure, how things have changed drastically from then to now. And I'm just really curious, what trends have you noticed in the industry that kind of stick out to you? Like, where do you see the future going now?
The future is now going into a lot of different areas of storytelling, especially of people of color, LGBT people. Um, it's just also it's so many different stories, and there are more platforms that it's coming on. You no longer have to look, sadly, at the mainstream television networks anymore, network television. You have the HBOs, the Showtimes, you have the CBS All Access, you have the Peacock streaming,
Yeah.
Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime. You have so many different areas, and also YouTube. And then it's just so many different areas where you can have your storytelling. And then piggybacking on to Issa Rae, she started off, which I love her show on Insecure on
Yeah.
HBO as well. It's just that type of storytelling is being told, and there's no restrictions. Because I've listened to so many people in the industry when they do their behind the scenes uh, talks about how certain shows and how they have to go in front of executives, and sometimes them telling them. I just recently caught the Emmys of how that was interesting, how that was produced as well in this pandemic. And I caught Issa Rae talking about her experience of trying to pitch a television show, and a television executive telling her, well, that's not really Black enough, and trying to school her on what the Black viewing audience would look at. And she's looking like, this is my experience, this is my history, and this is, I'm not going to alter it. So it's one of those amazing things right now is you have all these different streaming platforms, and they don't have to adhere to network network television standards and practices, because there's so much different rules of what you can put on network television. And now storytelling right now is at an all-time high, and a lot of people are getting their content out without going to the networks, actually having the networks coming to them
Yeah.
based on what they put, the content that they put out, and they don't have to be restricted. They're writing for what they want to see, because for so many years there was certain different, I can tell you the countless many television shows and movies that I had saw, and I was just like, well, this is cool, this is a great idea, but you didn't see that much diversity in the content as well. And of just even of just the foundation of television or entertainment in general. It was still, there was certain different rules that were applied to on television to try to create a very perfect and wholesome image. I mean, if you look at the classic sitcoms, you had the married couple sleeping in twin beds on the opposite side, who in real life back then actually slept in opposite beds, but they had children. It just, even with I Love Lucy, that was a favorite show of mine. She couldn't even say the word Lucy is pregnant. I think it's, I'm gonna get the word wrong, but it was like a French term that they use to say she's pregnant as the episode that she reveals her pregnancy as well. But it was just so many different standards that still even today that are placed on network television that people will go to an HBO and different streaming services, or even just, yeah, and they'll just upload their own content and say, forget it, I don't need the network. I'm gonna just put it out there and just see if anybody likes it. And then all of a sudden, we're in the world of Twitter, social media. Social media is big. It wasn't really big back in the 90s when I was growing up. So I'm just seeing so many different stories going down different avenues. And people, I just love that people are putting out things they want to see and then also hear as well, because I've been listening to a lot of podcasts as well. So I just love that right now the trends are that storytelling is not only universal, but the platforms are now becoming so large. Everything storytelling is evolving, and there's not one specific area where you need to go and find a specific genre that you're into. You no longer have to keep channel surfing, although, even though television still needs business, so I'm not knocking that. Television, I do love the major networks as well, but they're going to have to get some real good shows on it, because some of the shows,
Absolutely.
oof. But yeah, I see the trend going to beyond network TV of just having a whole wider range of places where stories can be told unfiltered.
Absolutely. I'm so happy that you mentioned Issa Rae because she has been a shero of mine for years. I can remember the first time seeing her shows when I was in college, Awkward Black Girl on YouTube. And
Mm-hmm.
I immediately fell in love with her content, her energy, her vibe, and just how she was so authentic. And it's so crazy how, like you said, she told that story about this person who's trying to kind of dispel her experience and try to make her feel like it's not valued or there's no room at the table for it. And I think that right now so many people are realizing they'll make their own table or they'll make their own place. And I think it's so important for people to feel empowered, like I have a voice, it matters, there's going to be someone out there who could possibly relate, or I just want to do it for myself. And I look at people like that who just decide to do their own content as honestly motivation and inspiration for me, because for the longest time, I would kind of always just help other people with their vision, which is great. It's great to be a support. You learn a lot. But I love the fact that people are like, you know what? I have something to say. Let me try. Because it doesn't have to always be that same standard traditional story over and over and over again. People want newness, freshness, something different. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm so happy that you mentioned Issa because I love her too. We always talk about her.
Yeah, it's one of like the current shows that I've been watching during the pandemic, especially newer shows,
Mhm.
is basically Insecure, and then also this other show on Hulu called Ramy, and it's by this comedian Ramy Youssef, and I was able to see him at the Caroline's Comedy Club with Yvonne Orji, who plays Molly on Insecure. She actually had she had a stand up that I went to see about 2 years ago, and she was bringing on a lot of other people before she came out. And I saw this guy named Ramy Youssef, and along with Gina Yashiri, she also has a show called Bob Hart's Abishola. I haven't seen it, but it's on CBS as well. But she's done a lot of other good stuff. But I just have seen these people, and then of seeing Ramy doing his stand up, and basically it was setting in gears to his television show. So that was another good show off of just seeing that camaraderie of tying Insecure to Ramy is because Yvonne Orji was on that show and she was just doing her stand up and brought along this guy to open up for her. And then he had his own television show within a year, and I watched that as well. And I enjoy that show as
Yes.
well.
Ooh, I'm so happy you're telling us what shows you've been watching during quarantine because I'm sure a lot of us have been really just having fun watching different content or old content. I've actually been splitting my time between old and new. So,
Yeah.
I went through a different world from the very beginning. Well,
Mm-hmm.
beginning. And I love you, Lisa Bonet, though. And I've been enjoying it so much. And it's such a different experience watching something as an adult versus when
Yeah.
you're younger. At least for me, I feel like I pick up on so many more undertones now. And I have a really more in-depth vision of what they're probably trying to convey with the writing. And
Mm-hmm.
also watching things that are newer to me, like Fleabag. I mean, we know that that's been a really high quality show that's gotten a lot of awards. And I May Destroy You on HBO.
That is so good. I watched that right after the finale of Insecure because they kind of overlapped.
Yeah.
So I started watching that with Michaela Cole.
Yeah.
That's also another. Thank you for bringing that up because I was watching that as well. That was such a good. I got through that one. And that talks about so much with just consent, and then just seeing that type of story, especially this is in London. This is in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
It was.
It's powerful.
Sorry to interrupt, but that was another good show that I had watched from beginning to end on
No,
that.
don't apologize. No, I love that show so much. And I guess why I'm even mentioning Fleabag and I May Destroy You in the same vein is because I just look at it as two really powerful women writers that are not like your everyday characters at all. They are showing their flaws. It's so realistic. And the coupling with like the social media and I May Destroy You, like it just feels so real and very unique. So yeah, I love those shows as well. Are there any other shows that you've been really enjoying, Will, that are kind of more new?
There was another show that I watched called Cherish the Day. that was based off of Sade's song "Cherish the Day," which was off of the Love Deluxe album, 1992. Yep, that's the same album as "No Ordinary Love," "Feel No Pain." Whew.
Yeah.
Yeah, just for those, I am a Sade fan. You know, I had a friend of mine years ago, messed up her name, had a couple of drinks that night. He was like, Sade. And I said, no, 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 do
Get it
not
right this
get it
time.
right, Ty. I was like, no, I had to give this look like, yo, you Sade? I said, no. But Cherish the Day, that was on OWN, Oprah Winfrey Network as well. And it was created executive produced by Ava DuVernay. So
Yeah.
this was one of her shows, and it just shows a couple of just getting together randomly, and then of just tracking their partnership from courting to being married. It even had, ooh, Cicely Tyson was in it as well. Cicely Tyson was in it. There was like a nice cameo with Quincy Jones. I'm remembering because it's just I saw so much of at the beginning, especially with the Love Is Blind. Oh God, that show. Tiger Hood, Tiger King, trash. But I did got through that. McMillions. I did watch that one with the
I
whole
watched
heist.
it.
That was that was another good one. I couldn't see Pose. I really loved that television show. Very good, but their season didn't happen because of the pandemic as well. I was a fan of Noah's Ark as well. They had a reunion. That was a little bit racy. Yikes! But
Yeah.
that was another. Yeah, that was another one that I watched because a lot of different reboots was happening in this time. So yeah, those are mostly the shows that I've been watching. And then recently, I just started watching old episodes of the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
Yes.
Talk about a throwback on there. I started watching that because I used to watch Nick at Night. So I used to watch the classic TV shows. They used to come on also in the 90s on Nickelodeon. You used to have their summer block party. Where I Dream of Jeannie Wednesdays, Lucy Tuesdays. They used to have themes every week. And yeah, currently I'm just watching old episodes of the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
Oh yeah, well, oh thank you so much. I've seen pretty much all the shows that you have too in the last few months, and it's been a whirlwind. Yeah, Tiger King's Lord, 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 Love Is Blind, Lord. You know what though? I tuned in. I can't lie. It was a guilty pleasure. Both of the shows, pleasure. Check it out if you want to see something crazy, but we're not saying it's I don't know.
Even watch like old Sex in the City episodes. That was another one of watching that. The Sopranos, 6 Feet Under. That was another good show as well. So that was my HBO, The Sopranos, all of them. Back then I was watching at that time. Yeah.
I love that so much. So, well, I mean, we could talk about all of these different shows for days and days, but I really want to make a point to ask you, especially just all your knowledge and your different experiences and your work ethic, like where do you see for yourself in the future, like how you want to contribute to the entertainment industry?
I definitely want to work in the programming and development side because of all these different shows that I have seen throughout the years. Just Brandon Tartikoff was very big back in the 80s, and all these different shows that I loved watching, he was the person that was spearheading this to put this on television. So that was a big reason why I really wanted to get into, really have a career in television programming, is because all these different shows I was seeing, I just wanted to be in the room, be in the table where they're making decisions of young people coming in, young or older people coming in, pitching in their show, and just being like, I really like this show. Let's go out and test it, learn how to test it, and then release it to the audience. But program and development, because, if I was one of the executives there, when Issa Rae comes to me, I was like, absolutely, I would love to put this on there. So
absolutely. Thank you for that, Will. I mean, I can just see your passion, all of your knowledge about it, and you're just educating people on these different things. I think it's incredible. I think it's important, and I'm really happy that you did this episode with me.
Thank you.
Well, I love talking to you so much. Thank you for being on this episode, and we're definitely going to do this again. I wanted to talk about more in depth with film. I think we kind of talked more about TV with this one, and maybe a music episode I think would be really dope. So comment below what you guys want to hear from Will. This guy is honestly, I know what you say, you don't know everything, but you know so much, and thank you for sharing it with us.
No problem. Thank you so much, Kira. We go all the way back to, especially that time when I asked you about Vanessa Williams and you said, oh yeah, he's got the look. And I was like, yo, okay. Because that's a B-side of the song, but it was on BET Jazz. I believe that channel.
Yeah, it was on BET. No.
Especially in this whole entire pandemic, it's just coming down to of just family and friends. You just take stock of what is really, really important. Connection and love, understanding, and just trying to live the best life that you can, because tomorrow is not promised.
No, that's right, Will.
So it's sort of like you want to make sure that you live the best maximum life that you can, and then also be around people that really give you that energy. It's not that much as like, what are you doing for me? But it's also of seeing that energy. It helps you to be a better person. And I got to say, my friendship with you for over 7 years now, or 7 years, close to that, something like that. Of just talking with you, I've learned so much from you as well. And it's especially when it comes to like self-care and just getting that talking, just talking it out on there. It's just, communication is always key, and as you probably could tell, I like to talk a lot on there. But
which I love listening.
Your kind and loving spirit, and just the energy and the passion that you have on so many different issues, and also of you doing this YouTube channel. This is a testament just to your evolving, your evolution. I love it. And you're not even 30 yet. So that's also like, damn, you on the up and up. But I'm just so proud of you, Kira. I really am. And I've always been a fan of you, fan of your shows, fan of your content as well. And you definitely make people want to be a better person. So thank you so much. I really appreciate everything that who you are, and of really being a really great friend to me. So thank you.
You're about to make me cry. I love you so much. Thank you for everything you've said. Like, just from the moment we became friends, I feel like we are so like accepting of each other, and you've taught me so much about just like wanting to learn and expand my mind, and speaking up for myself, and being true to my convictions. I feel like you have so many different values that you hold dear to your heart, and no matter where you are, who you're with, what influences are around, you always stick to your values, and you're so authentic and true to yourself. And it's so important to be around people like that and to have a friend like that, because it makes other people feel like they can do it for themselves too. So I love you, and thank you for everything you said.
No problem. Thank you.
All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been an excellent episode. We're going to do some in the future, so don't fret, my pet, as Steve Urkel would say. All right. Bye, guys. Bye. Bye.